Good evening, everyone. Dr. Demia here. It is 6:13. I'm 13 minutes behind schedule. It has been one of those days. I don't know about you all, but it is gray and dark and gloomy here in Richmond. I hope you have some sunshine wherever you are. And thank you for checking in, logging on, watching the replay. I appreciate you and any feedback that you have regarding any of these live sessions. So, welcome everyone. Hi, everyone. You know, I am a product. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Demia, and my passion is empowering urban school leaders so that they can lead with the confidence, finding that balance between, high performance and a healthy culture, right? And so, as a product of public urban education, I believe that we have the power within our circle, our sphere, to change the systems that continually oppress our most marginalized students, right? We have to be, as Margaret Wheatley says, brave enough to have the conversations and even start the conversations that matter, right? And I'll add courageous enough to disrupt the conditions to bring about change in the current realm of public education right now. So we need action now, right? We talk a lot, but I bring these live sessions to you to kind of share like what are some things that we can actually do right now. And very often I will incorporate some data. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. Tonight's discussion is about student engagement. So we're going to tackle that crucial topic because we know that student engagement is a huge challenge for school leaders. It was for me as a school leader, and more specifically, how we can combat chronic absenteeism. Right? We talk about this post-pandemic world, and it is a real thing. And so let's talk about that for a couple of minutes this evening. And I'd love for you to chime in the comments to share your thoughts. So, in the wake of the pandemic, schools have been seeing a significant rise in absenteeism, right? In fact, research shows that in 2021 and the 2022 school year, 1 in 3 students were chronically absent in some districts, right? And we know that when students miss school regularly, it affects their academic performance and the school culture and the morale of the school, right? So absenteeism isn't just about students wanting to come to school, right? Or it often reflects deeper issues, which we know when we actually dig deeper, when we make the home visits and we have the social workers going to homes, right? Students feel disconnected. That is one of the reasons why students don't come to school. They feel disconnected. A lot of students feel unsupported or they're disengaged from the learning environment. And I keep stressing this, and I don't know how we're going to change the system, but we can do. We just got to be brave enough to make the changes and the disruptions that are needed. Students engaged in 2024 are not students engaged in 1994. We have different kids. They have different things in front of them that are keeping them engaged, and we are still teaching the same way, right? So today I'm going to share some practical solutions that can help school leaders improve student engagement and make school a place where students feel like they belong every single day. Okay. So let's move on to some actionable strategies, right? Things that you can actually implement in your schools to tackle absenteeism and improve engagement. Now, I'm not saying this is the one and only thing. There are several ways for you to address this challenge, but today we're going to talk about a couple of those ways, right? So, in my book, Decisions by Fire, I talk about how creating a culture, which is the third phase of the framework, which is an ethos shift. I talk about creating this culture and a culture of belonging. Now, mind you, in phase 3 is where it breeds and lives, but in phases 1 and 2 is where the seeds are planted, right? So one of the most effective ways to increase student engagement is by creating a culture of belonging. When students feel like they belong to a community where their presence actually matters, they are far more likely to participate, right? reflect now. What does your school culture feel like? Do students feel welcome when they walk in the building, when they walk into their classes, when they walk into the cafeteria, the gym, the nurse's office, anywhere in the building? How do you know that students feel welcome? And waiting until the spring when the district issues those culture climate surveys is too late. How often are you checking in to see how your students are feeling about the culture of their school? How often are you collecting feedback, this qualitative data from your students about how they feel about their school? Do they feel safe when they walk in? Do they feel like their teachers actually care about them? And again, these are great questions that are asked at the end of the year, but that's too late. You have to start asking those questions at the beginning of the year and intermittently throughout. So just so that you can continue to collect data and you start to notice patterns, right? So one of the ways that once you collect this data and you start to notice that, okay, there are particular teachers that students feel more connected to than others, that gives you your key and your indication of like, okay, what do I need to do to support that teacher in developing and fostering positive relationships with kids, right? So ensure that students have meaningful connections with their peers and with staff, right? And one effective way to do this is through mentoring programs. You can develop mentoring programs and assign staff members to check in on specific students regularly. When students have a trusted adult or peer, they feel more supported. And so in the middle school where I was a principal, an all-girls school, we had something called a crew. And every adult in the building was responsible for a crew of girls, anywhere from 8 to 10 girls. And when you assigned that crew as an adult, that crew was yours from the moment that student walked in the building in 5th grade to the time they left in 8th grade. So the crew leader and the crew became a family over years. Assigning mentorship or having mentorship programs doesn't always mean you have to bring people in from outside. You can use the resources you have in your building. The adults, assign adults to a crew. It's kind of like advisory, right? A lot of people know it as advisory, but you can actually have a crew where your students are connecting to an adult on a consistent basis. Crew met every single morning. There were culture lessons and character lessons that the crew leader was responsible for. And eventually, as students became more acclimated with their family, their crew family, students started to lead the crew lessons. The power in that is amazing, right? So think about how you can utilize the staff that you have to develop these relationships to make kids feel welcome. Okay. The other thing you can do is to celebrate diversity and individuality, right? So highlight the unique strengths and backgrounds of each of your students, right? And we know that this is something that should be happening in your buildings, right? But a lot of times it is not. I know some leaders who are like, I'm not celebrating anything. This way I don't leave anybody out. Yeah, but how welcoming does that really feel, right? As a student. So hold events that celebrate student achievements, their cultural backgrounds, right? Or their interests, especially if we have a staff in the building that do not live in the community and don't understand the cultural nuances of that community, right? When you do these things and you hold events like student achievements and celebrating cultural backgrounds and student interests, this signals to students that they are valued. Like, put yourself in their shoes for a minute, right? And think about where you're from, culturally, where you're from. And having that culture being acknowledged and celebrated, how that would make you as an adult feel, right? They feel valued as individuals, right? And they feel like they're an important part of the school's fabric. Like, I belong here. This is my school. That is the message you want your kids to feel, or the message you want like how you want them to feel about their school. Another solution to the absenteeism challenge that we are facing with students is student teacher interactions, and I'm going to stress this as a solution, as a non-negotiable solution. And I want you to be honest and reflect on how many times have you, as a leader or even as a teacher, whatever role you were in school, a student came in the room and you didn't want that student, you were praying that that student was going to be absent. How many times do you think that face expression that you showed that student saw? How do you think that student feels when they see their teacher frowning up their face when they walk in the room? We're talking about creating environments where kids want to come to school to address the chronic absenteeism problem that we have, right? And we know that our students with the worst attendance have the biggest issues at home. They're not getting what they need in terms of support at home a lot of times, right? And so they have to come to school to get that support. And if you're rolling your eyes or frowning your face when that student is walking in the room, or you know a teacher in your building as a leader is doing that, what are you doing to address that teacher to help build relationships, right? And so let's talk about building rapport with personalized attention. I used to tell my staff all the time, like, we are in customer service. We are servicing children and families, right? Think about when you went to a restaurant and you got terrible customer service. I'm sure the necks were rolling and I ain't leaving no tip. Yeah, okay. When you get good customer service, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel valued. That is what we need to do, what we must do as educators, especially for our most marginalized kids, right? So building rapport through personalized attention is necessary. So teachers, what you're doing is you're helping teachers take the time to learn each student's interests, their strengths, their challenges. And I'm not just talking about a inventory survey that a lot of teachers like to give at the beginning of the year and then they never use it again, right? I'm talking about meaningful ways of connecting with kids, personalizing lessons to align with the interests that they have so that they can see that what they're interested in is valuable and worth learning when you embed it in their lessons, right? So children can take, like when you personalize these lessons with these interests, it makes the learning more relatable. They want to come back to school. Oh, she talked about my neighborhood. She talked about the pool that up the street that I know little Billie Jean went to, right? Or almost that the dog ran up the fence and jumped over the fence to jump into the pool. She talked about that in her lesson. It's meaningful. The other thing that you can do as a leader is making sure that you are giving frequent feedback and encouragement to your teachers, right? Teachers need support, y'all. They are tapping out left, right, front, and center. And they need you, us, as leaders, to support them because we can't expect them, like I forgot his last name, Michael, said, you can't expect to withdraw on something you haven't invested in. We can't keep telling staff to build rapport and personalized attention and give personalized attention to students, and we're not doing that as leaders with our staff, right? So regular, not every other month, regular constructive feedback will help students stay on track. So connecting with your staff and how they give that feedback is really necessary. Positive reinforcement goes a very long way, right? In keeping students motivated. Now, I'm not a big fan of, the reward. I give you this. If you do that, you get a pencil. You get to go to the store. You redeem these points. Like, okay, I'm a firm believer in developing the intrinsic reward and value system that we need. We're doing this because it feels good, right? And that is a part of the emotional intelligence that we need to build in ourselves as adults, but also in children. Like, how are you feeling because you got that grade? How are you feeling because of Your work was acknowledged and placed up on the documentation panel. How, those are the things that we need to get kids to really buy into. I'm really not into the extrinsic reward so much because we want to do it because it feels good, right? That's just me. But making sure that kids have consistent feedback helps them stay engaged as well, and positive feedback too, right? Share your thoughts. What have you done? What haven't you done? What are some things that are resonating with you with what I said? Or some things where you're like, you know what, Dr. Mia, I really don't agree with that. And here's why. Let's keep the conversation going. Okay. Another solution for this chronic absenteeism that we are seeing right now is, and this is big because a lot of folks in education don't want to let go of control. But I'm telling you, one of the solutions is using student-led learning. A powerful way to boost engagement is making students a part of the learning process through student-led learning, right? When students take ownership of their education, they become more invested in it. Think about you as an adult. Think about the professional learning that you go to where it's a sit and get, and how you drown out after the first 10, 15, 20 minutes. But then when you're engaged in the learning, that you're part of the learning, you're moving around, you're moving, at different post-its and things like that, engaging in conversation. Think about how much more you're invested when you are a part of the learning as opposed to just being a recipient, right? It baffles me how we as adults, learners, know and appreciate the style of learning that we have, but we don't do that for our kids. We're still doing the same thing that we did years ago, and it's not working, right? So push past the fear, let the reins up a little bit, and let some of the control go so that you can engage in project-based learning. At the middle school that we were at, we engaged in project-based learning. Student-led learning was the focus of that middle school. When students are engaged in their learning, they will blow your mind away. To see our girls standing up there, engaging in their own learning, talking about what they know, what they don't know, how they know it, where they want to go, like this meta awareness is a beautiful thing. And it happens when students are engaged in their own learning. So if you're developing projects, and this is something that you can do at the beginning of the year, what is the theme that you want for your school? How are you embedding that theme through all of your content? What is the thing that students will create at the end of that theme for a project? A project-based learning environment, encouraging students to pursue projects that interest them, giving them a menu of choices, right? Giving them some autonomy in that way so that they can choose how they want to present their work. Making them curious about their learning, right? Doing group projects, working together, because in society, working together is necessary, right? A lot of people don't work in silos anymore. There's a couple of jobs where you do that, but most of the time it's collaborative work. And having students learn how to do that in school prepares them for success, right? I shared with you earlier that we had a crew and a crew leader, and that by the end of the year, some students, scholars, actually ended up teaching and creating the crew lessons, character lessons. So these peer teaching opportunities, what better way to get invested in some learning, honey, when you got to do it yourself? When you become the teacher, allow students to teach or lead discussions in class. Let the reins go, y'all. This will empower your students to engage in the material on a deeper level. So as a school leader, what this means for you is that you need to create the space and environment in your school that makes your teachers feel more comfortable with letting the reins go. This may mean don't do the whole school as an initiative, but you have one or two teachers who are willing to do it and start it out as a pilot. Start with them. Collect the data on their attendance, on their student engagement. Get your baseline data and then start with the project-based learning and peer teaching opportunities and gather data about on how it is impacting that classroom. So now by the end of semester one, at your staff meeting, you're showing the data, the growth, the attendance that has improved, right? The engagement in class that has improved. Pick one or two teachers who are willing to do it. Doesn't have to be a whole big thing. Chunk it. The idea is to make your staff feel like it is absolutely possible and make them feel comfortable with kind of letting go some of the control. Okay. Let me know your thoughts, what you're thinking about it, what you're feeling. If you're watching the replay, let me know if you've done something like this before and how it has impacted either your school or as a teacher, how it's impacted your students and even families, right? Because at the middle school where we had a student-led learning, a large part of this is family engagement. Families had to come in for students-led conferences. They had to come in for their presentations, right? So if we're talking about, solving the absenteeism issue, because there's a lot of things going on in students' lives and their families, like in just the whole dynamic, including the family in it and supporting them in, come on into the school and watch your child soar, right? Celebrating them. It is a well-rounded initiative when it's done consistently, right? And with love, just not a checkbox, but with love, y'all. Okay. So so just to recap, there are a couple of things that you can do for the absenteeism issue that we are seeing in schools. And one is creating a culture of belonging, right? Helping students feel like they're a part of something bigger, right? Making them more likely to engage. So I'll give you an example. At the all-girls school, our first building, because we were looking for a permanent home, we had to rent space from the city schools, one of the city schools building. And the street that we were on, cars would fly down that street, right? And because it was a middle school, the district didn't give us a crossing guard. So as families are dropping their girls off, we have cars into two-direction road, cars flying. Was it two directions? Yes, two directions. Flying down the street, right? Where parents are angry and complaining, and our girls will come in like, I almost got hit. This car just flying down the street. And so as a staff, we said, what are we going to do? Like, we tried to talk to the district to help us with it. There was nothing that they could do. They couldn't give us a crossing guard. So we said, well, what else can we possibly do? Right? We raised the question to the girls. Girls, we know that this is a thing for us, right? This is a challenge, a problem within our school community. Let's brainstorm some ways that we can fix this. Oh, the ideas started flying. Some of them were all way off the wall. We couldn't even consider them because some of them were illegal. But the gist was everyone came together to brainstorm some issues that the issue that of the car speeding down the road. We ended up realizing, like, okay, let's contact the city. What can the city do? Can they put a stoplight? Can they put a stop sign? What can they do? So that became a project. That was the question. What can the city do to help create a safe space for our girls? This is the girls coming up with this is the question. Now they had to do research. They had to look information up online about city who to contact, who the mayor was, who the city council person was, looking up information for traffic rules and all of this research that they had to do, which was guided by the teachers, naturally, right? But it was impactful because they were invested in it because they wanted this change. This impacted them directly. Long story short, they ended up writing letters. Letters to, I forgot who the person was, but it was somebody who was in charge of the transportation, like, stop signs, that kind of stuff, and the transportation authority. They all wrote letters, right? The teachers helped revise them. They went through the writing process, right? So think about what we're talking about now. We're talking about research. We're talking about writing. We're talking about discussion, right? Now they write these letters. We all walk and we're taking pictures. We take pictures and we film our girls walking to the mailbox because why? They are engaging in something that has a direct impact on their school community and their lives. Not something far away in a book, but something real and tangible for them. So we walk them to the mailbox. They drop their letters in. They're smiling as they're dropping their letters in because they know they're about to make some change. Well, all these letters, I don't know how many, maybe 75 letters, get to this person, this one person. Now, naturally, they call us back as a school. They come to our school, right? Because we know they're coming to the school, we prep the girls with some questions to think about some things that we didn't tell them what to ask. We just had, again, conversations with the girls, lessons around what types of questions to ask, how to listen, right? How to pay attention to responses and build on another question. Full lessons, analysis, right? The woman came in, and when I tell you, that woman walked out that school and she said she was ill prepared for what the girls were giving her. She was not prepared for our girls because our girls and our staff prepared our girls through lessons, meaningful lessons, and got them prepared to ask this woman questions about the speed limit, why all of these things in regard to cars driving that fast up and down the street and what can be done. And every single thing, every opposition the woman had for the girls, they had another question that countered that opposition. It was beautiful. When I tell you it was beautiful, it was absolutely beautiful. Okay? The woman left. They sent follow-up emails and letters. We asked for a stop sign. First, we asked for a light. Couldn't do that because of the distance between the other light, right? She gave an explanation for that. A stop sign, we couldn't do that. I'll tell you what we did get, though. We got a speed hump. And when the girls came to school the day and saw the speed hump on the street, they were so excited because they did that. This is what I'm talking about about student-led learning, project-based learning. When you think about all of the standards that were embedded in what we did with those girls and the impact that it had to see that when they came together, they actually can make a difference in their community, that's a win-win. So my call to action for you, before I get to the call to action, the 3 things that can help you as a leader help with your chronic absenteeism in your school is one by creating a culture of belonging. How do your students feel walking in the building? Take inventory on that. The second thing is meaningful interaction with teachers, right? To create a supportive environment where students feel cared for and encouraged. And then the third one is student-led learning. I just gave you a perfect example of what that is, right? Empower your kids to take ownership of their learning. So these strategies have been proven to be successful around absenteeism and boosting student participation. And they can easily be implemented in any school setting. If you have any questions on how to do that, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is rolling along the bottom of the screen. So please feel free to email me or DM me if you're watching this on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Send me a DM or a message. if you're interested in any one of these strategies, then I can help you and talk through this with you a little more. Okay, so my call to action for you. First of all, you need to be ready to take your student engagement strategies to the next level and break away from the chains of control, right? So make sure that you are, the first thing that I would say, dude, if for the very first step is making sure that you find one or two teachers who are ready to do this. Start small before you start going larger, okay? So commit to that. Can we commit to that? Okay. So thank you for joining. Next week, I'm excited to be joined by a special guest, Curtis Lawrence, principal at IDEA Public Schools. Curtis is a leader who's really passionate about building community, and that extends beyond the classroom, right? Which is very similar to what I'm talking about today, and believes that students are much more than just data points. So join me next week at 6 o'clock, where I'll be talking with Curtis Lawrence live, and we'd love for you to join in and share your thoughts. So thank you again for joining in today. I appreciate you all, and keep going, y'all. Y'all got this.